the Judenrat. They came to the ghetto that time and he says they needed the Jewish police to make order there. They took 40 policemen, Jewish policemen, together with the commandant, his name was Weltman, to go to put everything in place. They took him there, they had to bury the 2,000 people. They were laying already in ready graves. Graves was already digged, but to cover them up. As soon by then they had to cover, they shot them all 40, together with the commandant. Not to leave any witnesses. Not far from there were Jewish people working, and they, of course, they start to sneak in and listen what's going on, and they saw all the action. Then Krampe came with a car to the ghetto, asked the president of the Judenrat, Isaacson, and his secretary, hit him with a spitzrute and put him in the car. He took him there to their graves and killed them both right there. That was the first action that happened in Baranovich. After that, he says it's all over. Everybody back to his point, everybody to his work. There will be no more action. People little by little start coming out, and everybody back to work.
Where did you go?
I went I was working already in that mill in the back from us. We supposed to go out of the ghetto, even there is right behind, and walk around and come, not to cross the barbed wires, but because the one in charge of that pig mine, so he used to spread the 2 wires and go in direct straight there. If a German was there, we went legally all around there. People start back to work, but people realized that if you have a place to hide, could save your life. And there people started in the whole ghetto to build hideouts. That hideout was something you wouldn't believe. You need engineers to do it. You used to go in a regular basement. From that basement, just open up.
We're going to change tapes. Just went an hour. So.
Because of a lot of people got saved by hiding in the first action, people start preparing hideouts, place where to hide. They did it in such a way there's no way anybody can notice that there is a hideout there. For instance, some places the stove used to move away from the wall and go in there. The stove used to go back to the wall and leave even sometimes a fire on it. You shouldn't notice it there. And they will go down a meter below the surface and dig out enough room for about 70 or 80 people to go in there. Sometimes they divide it into 2 hideouts, 40 and 35 or 40, whatever it came out. And it was very hard for the Germans to notice that there was a hideout even.
What did your family decide to do?
That went on for a while, and we did the same thing. We went at night out of the ghetto to the back mill of ours, which has no guard there, and we dug out a place enough for about 15 people, which my father-in-law thought he'll take his family there. Besides that, all the other people who were in the house made a different one in the ghetto. And we prepared ourselves. We made like some kind of air should go in, made like a pipe which goes out in a corner, which not noticeable. The air should go in there inside. And place where to be able to, of course, there's no chairs, no tables, no beds, but sit there over there till the action goes over. So was each house had prepared himself without any exceptions. And that went on for the whole, from March till September was almost all ready. Everybody was ready for it. And meanwhile, the atrocities went on. Any German who could think any way to harm us did it. It was facts when a German came in 4 o'clock in the morning. He was on a party, drunk, came with his Polish girlfriend, and just hopped in. A lot of people got up so early to go and down him, not in the house, in outside. And my neighbor, next door neighbor, Moshe Steinberg, was going to be stars already. He knocked him right a bullet in his head. And he started looking, shooting all around her. Of course, the Judenrat tried to appeal right away there, and the Gebietskommissar, this is illegal. You'll be punished, of course, whatever it is. But meanwhile, the damage was done. Anybody who did anything wrong at work, you never saw him back. But a lot of people tried to prepare themselves, not only in hiding out, but to fight back. Was formed groups. That group was formed in secret because they didn't want the Judenrat to know about it. What kind of secret could be about Jews when one knows and the other one knows? He told the secret to the other one, now and the third one. Of course, they knew about it, but they couldn't do anything. They didn't want to make a noise for nothing. People used to work in the old magazines where the Russian left ammunition, and the Germans took it over and used to work with it, take parts away, some to destroy, some to put in other place, and used to start bringing in parts. Take a rifle and take it in 7 parts and bring it in and then put it together. I was young that time, 26, but I was married, had a wife and a child. I couldn't be active as much, but a lot of people, mostly were singles, of course, maybe all of them. They tried to prepare themselves. Somehow got to the Germans. We wouldn't say that we had in our ghetto all honest, devoted Jews. Some of them figure he'll save his life by screwing on the others. It got to them that, you call it a Widerstand, that some people are getting ready to fight back. They came, they looked all over, they couldn't find, because they're hidden in good places. And of course, you can imagine what kind of ammunition was brought in when you had to take a rifle in parts and bring it in. Special comes to a gun. How could you bring it in? You used to take a piece of wood. It was allowed to bring in wood to heat the houses or to cook, and used to open up a beam, like a big piece of wood, put the rifle inside and paste it together. And we went through a few times. But after that, after they find out or something, they start controlling by the tower, the entrance to the ghetto, strict, and look over there. I remember at one point, one guy had 80 bullets. Thinking that today is easy, they told him they're not controlling now. So he wanted to sneak in. As soon as he noticed that there's a strict search, and there was a wagon going to the ghetto with wood, he just dropped it on the wagon. Of course, the guy who was driving the wagon knew who did it. After they find it, start up, who is it? Who does it belong to? Of course, that man, I remember his name, Mushinsky, he hid someplace, you couldn't find him anymore. But the Germans says they'll kill a certain amount of Jews unless they find the guy who did it. He decided to come out from hiding, and in order to save the other Jews, he says, so they'll kill me, but I won't do it. The Judenrat tried to calm down the Germans. First of all, they gave him a few kilo gold, I don't know how much, but they gave him gold. And then they tried to explain to him that it was done not for fighting, but because of the bedbugs. Instead of disinfection, they used to use it over there. They believed or they didn't believe, but they liked the gold, and they figure he gets 100 lashes in 2 different days. He got 50 lashes, and then I got another 50 lashes, of course. Then I came back in the ghetto, and they took him to the hospital, and somebody survived. He wound up later to be in the partisans also. I don't recall a lot of them right now. Maybe it will come to me what happened during that time from the first action to the second action. But you can imagine there was plenty atrocities, one after another. It finally came the day before the next action, after what I told you that they knew that there was a resistance group getting ready, they called everybody out in the morning to the place next to the Judenrat. They picked out 700 young people, strong people, and said they need some place to take them to work. Simple reason, they figure who is the fighters? All the young people. They picked out 700. Between them was my 2 brother-in-laws, my wife's brothers. And they took them away to a place called Molodetsne, which is, I don't know exactly the mileage, approximately 80 or 90 miles from Baranovich. It was in a wooded area where they used to prepare for the railroad, all the beams, the piles that they needed for it. There was, of course, they succeeded. A lot of people were involved in that group, were taken away. But that didn't stop them. They continued to bring, and they had even an exit at night to the ghetto. Through where the water goes out of city, to the pipes, sewer pipe. Used to go to the sewers and go out of town, and they did it with the washing. I don't know exactly what it is, but I remember they told in secret one another, so many rifles in, so many guns, so many there. And when that day will come, and they decided, there was a discussion with them, how should they do it? If they'll start up the first one, of course there will be killed thousands of Jews, and they were afraid. They says they are the guilty ones for doing it. So they decided to do it whenever action will start. They notify each other, and they all go out from the hiding and take out the ammunition and start fighting with them.
What connection did you have with this resistance group?
I had people who were participating there, and I was told I should take part with them. And I told them someday I'll do it, but meanwhile, if I leave my wife and child, I couldn't do it. So more than less, I had an idea what's going on over there.
Were there people living in your house who were part of the group?
No. My house was strictly religious people, and the religious people believed only in praying. We had a few families. All the families were Orthodox, mostly Hasidim even. And in the other half of the house was different people already, younger people, and not so religious. None of the other people also that I recall, maybe he was joining them, but I didn't know about it. And they start talking about going into the woods also. After that, they'll fight the Germans, they'll kill as much as they could, and they should all together run away. Of course, never came to it. There was no walkie-talkie. They had no connection. One was one side of the ghetto and the other side of the ghetto, and the connection was by sending messengers. If the Germans start surround the ghetto, there was no time for anybody to walk over there. It was a case when one of their messengers, a girl, was walking, and they said, halt, and she did not wait, and she was killed right there. So it wasn't exactly the way it's supposed to be, because they couldn't have any connection by telephone or walkie-talkie, whatever it is. It didn't work out. So about mid of September was Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur was that time on Shabbos, and Shabbos night we already noticed that the ghetto is being surrounded. Was the second action. Of course, everybody ran to his hideout. Whoever got food, water to take along with them, they went there. And so did we. There were two hideouts, one in ghetto, one the outer ghetto. My father-in-law's family, including me, went into that mill. We had already dug a place under the ground, and was enough for the family to go in there. Of course, it was explained to the other people, there's no room over there to make for more people, and besides, if a lot of people start going over the wires, they'll notice from the outside. But was done also inside the ghetto, proper way, and was, you going into a basement, from the basement opens up a blind wall, which you cannot notice. And then you go into that hideout. Soon they surrounded the ghetto. People hide out, and everybody ran into like the rats in the ground. Even now, it happened to me when I dream crawling under the ground with thousands and thousands of people. There was no entrance to go in your hideout unless you crawl in there. Even to bring in a pail of water was hard to bring in. You had to stretch your hand up and down in order to crawl in there. And so I used to go in there, in some places 40 or more sit together with one pipe who supplies air for the whole place over there. The Germans would have never found any of the places. It was done very smart and was like masked that nobody should be able to notice it. As I find out later, it happened at night. People used to go out and get in more food and catch fresh air and going back for the day. Of course, the Germans were working at full speed already. Trucks used to come and used to grab people over there, whoever they find in the hideout, and took them to a different place this time. Was in the south side of Baranovich, of the city, called Grabovets. Big holes were dug out already, prepared for a big mass execution. And they were working full speed, but they couldn't get as much. They figured they'll get one after another people out there. They couldn't find them. As I find out later, they found one man who did not rush himself to go in the hideout, and they caught him outside the house, outside the hideout in the house. And they gave him food and drinking. Of course, everybody was there without air, without water, without food. And here they gave him food, and here he says, tell us where is the hideout. You will remain alive, we promise you that, but you'll tell us where is the hideout, how to get there. It took a while. After a few hours, he showed him a place. First place was not far from the Union Road on Sodova Street. And they start talking to him, he showed him the place. He brought him into the basement, he showed him the entrance from the basement to the hideout. Of course, after that, they had a ball, because a lot of people did the same way. They went to the basement and they started looking over there, and they find over there. It happened a few times that some of them got in the basement and they never got out of life, because some of the Jews, young fellow, jumped and killed him. Of course, they threw, in some cases, grenades inside, and whoever remained alive was calling out. This way, it was easier for them to do it. For 3 days, we were in our hiding place, and we felt like somehow we are secure there. On the third day, on Tuesday, one woman who was in the ghetto, in the hideout which was in the ghetto, thought that it's better to be together where we are, out of the ghetto. In the middle of the day, she jumped out from that hideout, crossed the wires, and started screaming, "Open up, I know you are there." I heard it, and people says, "Go out and quiet out and take her in already." We had a blind wall. Shouldn't be able to notice it, because the keys to the mill was not in our hand, that was by one in charge, a Gentile. But we had made a wall, which you can open the wall and get in there. I opened the wall, and to my astonishment, was 30 or 40, whoever was there, everybody was there. There was no room to go in, even here. It didn't take a minute. Policeman was there. He saw the screams. First thing he did, he shot in the air. It means call for help. I was running back to that hideout. I didn't want to demask them. They should know where it is. I figured maybe they know, so I'll stay outside. All the people, the women and children mostly, were running, and they knew already where it is. They jumped in that direction. As I stay over there without knowing what to do, the door started breaking. In that mill there was an oven. That oven had a kettle inside the oven called a dryer. Used to put in there, I believe, 500,000 pounds approximately of grain to dry it out. That kettle had a latch from one side and a latch on top. The latch has to fit exactly the opening of the oven, so they match each other. You'll be able to put in the grain from the top, and after it's finished, a latch open up from the side and you still go out. But the dryer has to be exactly in that position. I remember there was one day, there was a leak in that dryer, and we had to fix it. None of my brother-in-laws couldn't get in there because it was very narrow. I was skinny, and I remember that I used to get in there. There's no place to sit down over there, you're laying, but you got in there and repair that hole. Without thinking that, I just thought, let me jump in there. I straightened out Everything happened in seconds because the door was breaking already. And face up, I pulled myself into the dryer and let the latch close behind me. There was not much air in it. That has to be closed exactly, otherwise it wouldn't have dry. But it was enough air for a while to be there. I was laying there. I couldn't hear even what they're talking outside because there's, imagine the kettle closed complete in the oven above, on top of the kettle. I was laying there, straightened out, in one position without moving the chair. I was afraid to move because the kettle will turn to the right. And after a couple of hours, it seems like it's quiet. With my legs, I opened up the latch and I pulled myself out. And there I saw the room. I saw what happened to my wife. My child was 2.5 years old, most beautiful child. The whole family, my brother was there, sister-in-laws, father and mother-in-law, all gone. I remained on the floor, fell down, crying without doing it. I figured, let him take me already. After anybody could walk in there would see me because I didn't hide in there. After a few hours, start darkened. I start thinking, what should I do now? Upstairs, I cannot knock and build something over there. There were certain parts of the mill which I put together without nails and put the shells of the buckwheat on top of it. It was very light. And I crawled on the bottom and lay down. I was thirsty. I went out, went in the backyard. There was a well, but you had to fetch with the water with a chain and a pail and the other chain to put in all the way down and get water out. I was turning the wheel so slowly, but it took me a few minutes to get the pail down to the water. I got in the water and same way back, slowly. I put up the pail of water and I took it with me in the hideout to figure let me have water. I find some dry bread, used to dry out bread, which doesn't get spoiled after it's dry complete. I used to wet it in the water and eat it. I was there for 5 more days without knowing how to go, how to run, where to run, and I was at times ready to go out and says, take me. On the 5th day, I heard noise, the voice of one of my sister-in-laws. She started screaming, father, mother, call names. I recognized her voice. I jumped out and I says, Zita. And I told her the whole story. She says, you can go in the other ghetto now because they stopped killing. That was 8 days that was there. The 3rd day of Sukkot, I moved from that ghetto to the other ghetto. It was a rainy day, and I saw people bending down on the floor, on the ground, to have a drink of muddy waters from the rain, because they didn't have any water. Half dead people, they hardly walked to go to the other, which they opened up back the other ghetto, and everybody could go in back there. The other ghetto was the other half, which was on the south of that ghetto. I went in there, and there was no more place. Before it used to be a meter for square meter per person. Over there was only 60 inches. Can you imagine 60 inches which is what? 24, 2.5 feet, 2.5 feet only per person. It was winter, it was cold already. It didn't freeze yet, was no snow, but it was cold already. I found the place, my sister-in-law was there, and was a lot from the other ghetto, but was one on top of each other. And they try people to go to work from there. My mill was no more in existence. It was there still, but I didn't go to work over there. I couldn't, so I just go with a group. Whoever they went to work, I went to work. But there was the cry all over. There was nobody who didn't have almost all of his family. And people knew already that time there is no other way, you have to run. The Judenrat president was that time Yankelevich. He was a very nice man too. He tried his best always to accommodate, but he did not advise people to run into the woods, into the partisans. He says, can you take yourself on your conscience to go away when the following day will take 2,000 people and you kill them? Our Jewish law tells us that if somebody is dying, you know in 5 minutes later he'll be dead. A minute before that you cannot kill him. You'll be judged like a killer, anyway. And then he started discussions between them to go or not to go. I was over myself, and I decided I'll be running out of ghetto. I prepared myself boots, because in the woods you need boots for the rain and everything there. And warm clothing. And someday I says, let's go out. As I got contacted with the parties, with the people who used to go to the partisans, they told me, you cannot go there without ammunition. You gotta have a rifle or a gun at least. Otherwise they won't take you over there.
What did you know about the partisans at this time?
They told me that in certain neighborhood, what's in direction, there are partisans who are fighting the Germans. And I was ready to go, of course, but when they told me you need a gun or you need a rifle, I didn't have any. If I wouldn't listen to them and just go, it would be different. But they told me they won't take you and they might kill you even. I didn't go right away, but I already tried to contact somebody how to get a gun. I was working that time back in that oil place. The manager of that oil place was some Paul.
Was this out of the ghetto? The oil
Out of the
place?
ghetto. Used to go with a column to work there. And he had a brother-in-law which was a policeman. How can you approach somebody who has a brother-in-law policeman and ask him for a gun? I was sure that he has one, but I couldn't ask him. So it passed by the time, it was approximately from September till December. It's about 3 months approximately. And in December, I know the date because later, when I ran out, I noticed the time, the date I left the ghetto was the 17th of December started the action. That was the last action. That's supposed to be finished everybody. There was no more hideouts because most of the hideouts they defined before, and besides, when before it was only 30 people, now it's 50 people in the place. There's no room to get in there. Some of them maybe jumped in the hideout, but mostly were out, and they surrounded the ghetto And we knew that's the end of it, nothing else. I was one of them who didn't know what to do with myself. There was no place to hide. To get us surrounded was dark. And I start running out. I ran out and just see somebody. Half a block from there was a lady which I was stationed in our house when I was a student in Baranovich. I noticed her, I jumped in and I says, have you a place where to hide? She says, there are my 2 daughters here and another, their girlfriend, and a boy here. She doesn't know if there's room for the 5 people, but you can try. I'm not going in, she says there. I'll mask you up. They didn't have a regular hideout. They just cut out the floor and dig out a small hole. No air. You couldn't catch air there. Nothing. Just a place to sit down over there. Between the 5 of us was close to each other. There was no place you couldn't turn on the other side. Just and in one position sitting there. And the mother of the 2 sisters remained outside. She took a table, a chair, and put on top of it, make believe there's nothing there. And of course, it didn't take long, couple hours. Policeman came in, he took her out, we heard everything. There was our uncle, was a very heavy-set fellow, most religious, most prestigious man in Baranovich. Used to do a lot for charity. Zimel Kushner. They took him out and took her out and was quiet for a while, without realizing that somebody could sit in the house and listen and hear if there is any noise someplace. Being there for a couple of hours, no more air. He started choking. And of course, I was one of them maybe, because I remember I was caught by the mouth, I shouldn't make noise. And all of a sudden I hear a voice in white Russian language, Vylezai, means crawl out. Of course, he pushed a couple boards that was on top of us, and it was like a relaxation. The air came in over there. It felt so good. That air. He took us out, 5 of them. 2 sisters, Kaplans was their last name. Their girlfriend, her name was Friedel Sholevitsky. Was another man, boy over there, which I didn't know because he was from the people who came running from the part of Germany that was taken a couple of years back, the other side of Poland. I didn't know his name. And he took us out from there and he put us right next to the house, laid us out one next to each other to shoot us. As he was pointing the gun, the first one to me, I said to him, can I have a prayer? He says, all right. So as he was aiming the rifle, he took the rifle back and he says, go ahead. As I start saying the first couple verses, all of a sudden we hear the German says, halt! And the 2 sisters jumped out. There was a German name, they call him Herr Meyer. They should save them. There was a German from Gestapo. He passed by and he says, don't make dirty with the blood all over. There is a half a block from here, a place where they shooting them, take them all there. And that's what he did. Of course, the German didn't listen to these 2 sisters. They were begging, and he just walked away. And he lined us out in one line, one way, to take to that place. I was the first one in line. As I came close to that house, there was a bunch of dead bodies laying next to the house. I jumped and started running right there. Of course, he had behind me 4 people. He managed to shoot the first one, and the second one was the man in the first girl, and I ran into the house. I did not run in the house direct. Something hit me. There was a foyer built in back of each house, which was a small room, 10 feet by 10 feet, or even smaller, just to keep wood for the winter or a basement where they put away butter, what is old in the hard days. And I jumped behind the door, like children who play hide and seek, stay behind the door. I pressed myself against the door, and I kept the door open complete, so it looked like nobody's behind the door. And I was staying pressed to the wall. Of course, he got help, another few policemen. When I was running away, he was the only one. He couldn't, with one shot, kill everybody. He shot the face too. The two sisters ran after me. They didn't know where I am because I was already behind the door. They jumped inside the house. They got into the oven, and they covered themselves in the oven. Used to have big ovens in Baranovich. We used to bake their own bread, people. And they jumped into that oven. He got help. Police will come coming in. They start looking. They find the two sisters. And they're looking all around there. Of course, I couldn't believe that they could pass by. Just open the door and they see me. I'm standing right there and they're passing by me. It was so obvious, probably. They figured there's nobody there. It's open. The door is open complete. And another group came in after that. And they start looking because they know somebody's missing. And they did not look behind the door. I stand there like a statue, pressed against the wall. Oh, good couple of hours probably. I couldn't stay anymore pressed down. I lay down, and it was so small that I remember my legs and my head reached both walls, once against the other. It was so small, the room over there. And I took old clothing, was laying there. I threw it on me, throwing like it's schmattes laying there. And I was laying there for another couple of hours till it got dark. It got dark. I got out from there, and I went to the house, first of all, to look for something to drink or to eat. And as I'm going into the house between the beds, I heard noise. I know Germans couldn't be because at night, no policemen, no German are inside. So I says in Jewish, "Where is it? Who is it?" And of course, there are two brothers who are laying all the time under the floor. They crawled in from the outside into the floor, and they lay there, and they heard whatever's going on, whoever was there, they heard me. And they told me the story. I know what happened. They didn't know where I was, but they heard the story what happened with the two sisters. And they say, "What should we do?" I says, "I haven't got a gun. But there's one thing for sure. We have nothing to lose. We have to run now. That's the liquidation of the ghettos. There will be no more saving." They agree with me, and I said, "Let's go to the wires, and we'll see what you can do." We came to the wires, the two brothers and I, and we crawled to the wire quietly. The policeman used to walk back and forth. We waited until he walked past by, he went further. Most likely, I that time thought that he took his long coat, cover over his head to light up a cigarette, because not supposed to probably. And that time, two of us picked up the wires, one jumped up, then the other one, we jumped up. He noticed right away, and sure, of course, started shooting. We were running. Nobody could reach us. We were running fast. Where did we run? We ran to that part, that mill where I was there before hidden. It was all open. And I said, "Look, they took out from here. They'll not come back to that hideout. Let's go into the hideout." We left it open. We get in there. We sat there all day long. And I said to them, "Look, I have no other choice." We were only 2 or 3 blocks, 3 blocks out of the city we could have gone and run. Because they scared us so much that you must have ammunition, you must have a gun, you must have a rifle. We can't go there. I said to them, "You know what? You want the chances? We'll go out before it darkens." 6 o'clock was nobody allowed to go in the streets. But let's go a little before that. Start to darken. We got to have a hour. We'll walk to that place where I worked as in the oil plant, the oil factory, and we'll see if I'll get in touch with that guy. We took out our hair from our heads, stick it out, looked like more than less like the other Gentile, and we walked whistling in the streets. The other guys were young people, and so I was, we walked all the way down to the city to that oil. Somehow nobody noticed that. Usually pass by, not on the same sidewalk because a lot of us was burned down. We went straight down, we came to that place. I know how to get in there even when it's locked. I got in, went on the attic. And I says, tomorrow when I come to work, I'll go to him. They said, no, we have no time to lose, go now. Do you know where he lives? Yes, I know. Imagine, go now to a place where a policeman sleeps there, his brother-in-law, and ask him, he should help you out. I got idea, I see, I got something to blend him that he'll like it. I went to, not to the street, but from that oil place to his house was like gardens. I jumped from one garden to the other garden, I came to his house. I knocked gently on the window, and he came out. Look, not his brother, he came out. And I says, look, I need your help. I'm in the oil place. I want to run away. I need a gun. He said, where do I have guns? I said, look, wait, I'll tell you what I'm going to give you. I'll give you furs in clothing. You'll be enough for you and your family for 50 years. 4 coats, letters. I'll show you where it is. You get it first. And after you get it, bring me a gun. Where have you got it? And I gave him the place where I had a 4, my wife had a 4 coat, everybody had 4 coats hidden there. I told him the place. He says, nobody can find it, but I'll tell you how and you'll find it. He went there, he came with a wagon load with goods. He was so happy that he came in the following day. He bought food for us, and he says, I'm going to get your gun. Sure enough, we were there. I don't know exactly. We went there on the 18th, about 3 or 4 days, because he didn't get a gun, he said, so easy. And every day, we were shivering, but he brought us food every day. The last day, it was the 4th or the 5th day, he brought us. He brought me a gun. He said, here's a gun. And thank you, he says, for the present that you gave me. But he says, wait till I'll go away, then you walk out of there. You can't walk at night because at night it's not allowed to walk. To go on this side of the city, I was afraid because I didn't know where to go. On the other side of the city, when I had to move to the ghetto, I called in a farmer, which was, my cousins knew him. I gave him all my furniture. I had a new bike. And I gave him, I said, look, if I'll remain alive, he'll give me back someday. I was in his house once. It was 15 kilometers from Baranovich. His house was like in the side of the village, and I says, we have to go there. So in order to go there, we have to cross again the city and go out from the other side of the city. We did it the same way we came here there. I had already a gun with bullets, and we were walking. It didn't take us long, 20 minutes or 30 minutes, we went out of the city on the other side. And then I said to the fellows, we have to walk fast. We were going, didn't take us long, the 15 kilometers, and I was afraid I didn't find the house. I find the house. Was that time Christmas. He was celebrating, singing and drinking. I knocked on the window. He opened up. I wasn't sure that he was going to take me in as a good guest. He opened out. The father, the old man, come in. And after I came in, I told him the story there. He says, you cannot stay here because the neighbors will notice over there. I says, there's not enough time left to go to the woods, and I don't know where to go. He says, I'll give you the place, I'll tell you where to go and how to go. But, he says, you're right, you'll never make it the night. He took us in the barn and put us on top, and Rufin says, I'll give you food, stay and don't say anything. Don't cough, just quietly for all the day. The other 2 guys did not know anything where to go. But I was happy I have company. On the following day, after the day is gone, he took us in, put us in the house, and he says to us, look, he says, I'll give you the direction how to go to the partisans. It's not far from here, something like about 15 to 20 kilometers. You young people, you can make it over there. Go over there, and soon you cross a certain bridge. The bridge might be destroyed, he says, but you get over on the other side. That's the partisans' territory. Germans don't walk around there. They come in groups if they look for you, but you'll be safe there. We walked away from him, and after we passed by 5 kilometers, a younger brother fell on his legs. He can't walk anymore. He's not used to walk, and the shoes was maybe tired on him, and he says, I can't walk. His brother and I put our hands together, and we put him on top of our hands and carry him for a couple kilometers. How far can you carry? He was a big guy. We decided to go in one of the farms there. Luckily, we got into one farm. We told them that we have a guy, we're going to the direction. Can you save us over the day? He was hesitating, but his wife says, sure, you can stay there. And I said that time to that younger brother, remember, you have in your conscience if something happened to us, because he shouldn't have looked whatever had happened. He said, I cannot walk. We stood there for the day, and the lady was very nice. She did not report anybody. In fact, she gave us food. On the following night, she came in, she told us, and she helped us give her more instructions. She shouldn't get lost. And we walked through the night, and we came to that river called Shoah. It was a few beams to cross the river because the bridge was destroyed from the partisans. No vehicle should be able to pass through. We walked over. As soon as I walked over the other side, maybe 200 feet, I heard in Russian language, "Stoy," mean hold. And I see comes a partisan with a rifle, his ammunition across. And who was it? One of the people I knew from Baranovich, Zormanovich. So we were so glad to see him over there. He spoke to us only Russian. It was like you know, he's a guy, army guy, and he's not speaking our language anymore. He took us to his commander, which was another 10 kilometers, was in the woods, in the marsh. And I brought us to him. First thing he came in, he looked at my gun. He told me that the bullets are without powder. The gun is a good gun, but the bullets have no powder. If something would happen to you, he would have shot. You think he's shooting him, he wouldn't have shot. He said, nobody. He took out the powder from the bullets. He took away the gun, and he sent me to, call it family lager. It's a place where 9 fighting partisans are there. Older people or children. He sent me there, and he took away the gun. At that time, I said to my friends, did I have to risk our life and go over there to get a gun? He took away anyway and sent us to the family lager. Telling him I want to fight, I didn't come here to save my life, I came to fight. It didn't help. He says, we haven't got ammunition to give for everybody. And the gun is not a fighting ammunition to go against the Germans. This is good for a commander to have in his sight a gun. And that started another life in the woods, which was not pleasant at all. We came out from fire, saved their life. Each one of us went through so much. In Feigelstein woods, all you have to do is risk your life to go fight the Germans. That's not all. That's not true. It wasn't that way. The Russian partisans looked at us like parasites. They didn't come to fight. They said they came here to save their lives. Any chance they had, they killed even a lot of us. Took away the boots, because most of them came with boots prepared. They killed, took away the boots and the ammunition, if somebody had one. I encountered once a case like that. It was a partisan group Russian. His name was Tsigankov. He had a few outlawed people with him. One the name of, was it Vanka or Vashka? Vanka, I believe. He used to go out and just look for one of our guys and catch over there. And at one point, I was going with a group to look for some food. So during the day, you walk into the river, you wait there till night, and then you go over there. He caught us over there and brought us in the woods, took off the boots, and luckily we started running from the woods, got back to our place where we used to stay together, and told his story over there. I decided to go away back to Baranovich and get some ammunition. I know nothing helped. We had one commander, a Russian, left with us. He's the only guy with a rifle. Everybody else was no rifle. To go to the farmers, ask for food, was better not to go because nobody gave you. If you ask, please give me something, what are you going to give you? And here there is, I believe there was about 80 people. We made rifles out of wood, painted with burned from wood, coal, burned. We painted that, should be dark, it should look like rifles. And the farmer should think that we have rifles and go at night and get some food. We did it a few times, and luckily we got something. But we were like anybody who wanted could kill us. And we were suffering for a long while, till finally, in the end, no, it was in the beginning of 1943, the Russians dropped a parachutes in the back in the woods where we were there to organize fight against the Germans. They came in prepared, they had radios.
They dropped troops?
That
Troops?
group, there was no troops, they dropped only
Supplies.
about 8 or 10 people, and they had supplies with them, radios and everything, to organize. They knew that there were partisans here. The group was named after the chief of the Russian NKVD, was Lavrenti Pavlovich Beria. Our commander was Kirill Prokopovich Orlov, very well-known fighter who went to Spain to fight during the Spain Civil War. And at one point, when we find out that the Germans came, some general came for hunting in the woods. And our group went out, I wasn't between them, but the commander went there, and they had a fight. They shot one of the generals and a few more, and the commander lifted up his hand with a stick of dynamite to throw it and explode in his hand.